Hey there, so today we're going to discuss yoga. We're going to discuss it in relation to the Alexander technique because, well, I'm a full-time teacher of the Alexander technique. My name's Adrian, and should you be interested in online lessons, do get in touch. So, a question I get asked occasionally, if I meet someone new and they ask what I do for a living and I say, the Alexander technique, and they may say something like, well, typically, oh, isn't that like yoga? And I politely have to kind of say, no, well, really, not quite. And this isn't, it's true, it's not. But to be more helpful, I think it's useful to look for the similarities in things rather than the differences. I think we often emphasise the differences between things for marketing reasons. Well, not entirely, I mean, there are genuine differences as well, but I think it's helpful to look for the similarities because I do believe that the Alexander technique can help you do your yoga better. I don't see them as things, you know, you do one or the other. You can do both, and you can use the Alexander technique to help with your yoga. So what is yoga? I think is a good place to start, because I think many people think of it as some sort of stretch fest, and that's really not what it's about. What are the derivations of yoga? Well, in India it was a spiritual practice. And I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of what that means, but what's a yogi trying to achieve? They're trying to achieve a sense of presence and quietness within. I'm using that as a very basic level of the spirituality within it, that sense of presence and quietness. And they're adding these poses in because it makes it more difficult to find that presence. So if you can do these poses with presence, you've strengthened the quality of that presence. You're not so likely to be wrong-footed in everyday life with your sense of presence because you've strengthened that quality. And the more present and quietness you can find, ironically, well, maybe not ironically, it's not the right word, but the more you find, the easier those poses become. And that's the parallel with the Alexander technique. That we are also looking for a sense of quietness, we call it inhibition. And we recognise that when you move, that if there's not that quietness there, we tend to interfere more with the movement. And then we practice movement to see if we can remain calm and quiet, to build that quality of presence, or inhibition as we call it, so that we interfere less in our movements. And that's the parallel. So you can do it through yoga, or you can do it through Alexander technique. The differences there are that there aren't specific instructions in yoga on not being reactive. There aren't specific observations of what that reaction looks like, what that interference looks like. It's kind of hoped it comes out in the wash, just through experience. And I do think there's a problem with group psychology in a yoga class, such that, you know, yoga is often taught in gyms here, gymnasiums, you know, people in their best lycra and maybe competing a bit with the person next to them, let alone competing with themselves. A teacher can't always keep their eye on everyone, you know, it's kind of fraught. I mean, even if it was taught well in an ashram somewhere in India, that same group psychology is potentially there. And we want to realise that it's none of that. You're not competing. So when you do your yoga, you're learning about yourself and you're using these poses to see if they upset you or not. That's my take on it anyway. Obviously you do get the movement itself is beneficial. Movement is beneficial in itself. So in the Alexander technique, we have no formal movements. We just use generic sitting and standing, and even going as far as low down as a squat, because it's normal functional movement. We're more interested in general functioning. But we can take the same principle of can I take my Alexander inhibition, not reacting, and apply that principle to my yoga. And do I recognize in my yoga what those reactions are and what I can do to minimize those reactions so you can do your yoga better? I am a big fan of my clients doing yoga because it gives them something to apply their Alexander technique to. It's something they're already interested in. It's something they do regularly, because I don't think you have to go around trying to Alexander your way through every waking moment. We want to build some qualities and strengthen those qualities in our presence and our movement, so we don't have to think about it when we go about our daily lives. So it becomes a new unconscious or subconscious habit. The thing is, life being what it is, we do get a bit of stress. Sometimes we have to top up our unconscious competence, as it's called sometimes, to achieve more unconscious competence. And yoga is a great time to do that. A great time to do that. I mean, it could be running, it could be anything, frankly. It doesn't really matter, but why not yoga? And I think those similarities, if you recognize those similarities, instead of getting too caught up in jargon, or, you know, would a yogi describe it in that way or not? Would an Alexander teacher describe it in a yogi way or not? I don't think is really the point here. They're human experiences, and if we interface with that, we can say, well, can I improve something from this? And I just think that there's a part of the Alexander technique that does drill down into some observations of what interference looks like. Unfortunately, I think is slightly missing from yoga. I get a feeling, you know, not just yoga, other modalities as well. I've seen it in Tai Chi as well. I used to do a lot of Tai Chi. You can develop these same qualities, flow in movement and presence, through Tai Chi as you can in yoga. But that same observation isn't there. And it's some people, through experience and practice, just seem to get through it. And others struggle. And for those that struggle, the Alexander technique will go, well, this is why you're struggling. This is the hurdle you need to get over, and or this is the hurdle you need to get rid of altogether. And that's why the Alexander technique can be very useful to improving something like yoga. But why yoga itself is, you know, has its own parallels to the Alexander technique, and recognizing that, maybe you'll get more benefit from it. Anyway, I'd be interested to know what your thinking on that is. That's just my take. So, excuse me, until next time, take care. Bye.